What's up, witches?
What's up?
We're here today. We're going to be talking about the mother archetype. If you have been with us and you listened to last week's episode of the maiden archetype, if you haven't checked that out, please do. This week's going to be all about the archetype of the mother, and next week will be all about the archetype of the crone. These are the three archetypes that all women will experience in their lifetime. We also will go over the wild woman, which comes right between the mother and the crone with peri and menopause. So, we are here today to talk all about the reclamation of the mother and step into a deep portal of truth with her. So, thank you for being here, and let's get started.
Let's get started.
So, Jamie, tell me a little bit about the archetype of the mother.
Mhm. Well, there's so many. The mother has so many facets. She's the soft, sweet, nurturing mother. She's the wise, nurturing, but somewhat wild mom. There's energy of the martyr mother, the one who is doing everything and holding it all together. There are always in every archetype the light and the darker, the vice and the virtue of each archetype. And the mother is no exception to this. We have all of these pieces of her within us. She's the woman who is always holding it all together. So you don't have to be a mother. Let's start there. You don't have to be a mom or a mother ever in your divine feminine life to access this beautiful mother energy. It's just
And
in
can you
go ahead.
explain a little bit of what an archetype is? How does it affect us?
An archetype are solid personality or energy types of different um parts of our personality. So the mother arc so the we talked about the maiden. The maiden archetype, she's wild and free and carefree and innocent and pure. And the archetype is an overarching energy or an overarching personality that can be embodied in order to interact with life.
Mhm.
So a lot of times we do access that carefree maiden. Maybe when we go traveling for the first time, seeing a place for the first time, we're excited. And we're with our husband, or we're with our family, or we're on our own. It does not matter. But the maiden shows up in us with excitement and curiosity and an open mind, and so that's how we're accessing her as an archetype when we are living our life. That's just one way. So, like for
And
instance, the
the
mother's,
mother,
go ahead.
the mother's a little different because we access her first in the way that we see our own mother and the
Mhm.
way that we're very much mothered. Um, Whereas I think that we have our own experience in growing as the maiden, but very often a lot of the archetypal experiences that we have with the mother come from our own experience of being mothered.
Mhm. Agreed. And also, if you did not have a mother growing up, it was the female or divine feminine person in your life that took that place, that role. Whether they were
Mhm.
no, they knew they took that role in your life or not, it does not matter. It could also be someone you watched on television, someone you read a book about. These archetypes are learned through how you are mothered. So if you do not have a mother, you often would substitute different motherly archetypes into your life, whatever, however
Mhm.
that looks.
Yeah, you might replace it in some
Uh-huh.
way.
Yeah.
And so, we can often even look at these archetypes in something as simple as a fairy tale. And so the maiden would be very much like the Snow White, before she is faced with the dangers of the stepmom. And so she's very free and talking with the animals, and she can go run in the forest, or Sleeping Beauty before she's 16 years old. She's very free. She's very like, in the forest. But once that kind of like point of reality hits,
Mhm.
that's a lot of time when we start to experience more the archetype of the mother. And she's going to appear for us in many ways and play out in our life in different ways, based on um, what kind of archetypes we take on for ourselves. So,
Mhm.
one of the most common ones, and I think the easiest to access in the mother, is the nurturing mother. Wouldn't you agree?
I do agree with that. And so I was just thinking about how sometimes we play out our mother archetype when we're younger too, during our maiden years, especially if we're forced into it in some way,
Hmm.
whether we have to care for someone else and kind of grow up quickly, or or we are allowed to come into that loving, nurturing, accessible mother that you just described, and while we're children. And we're able to learn by observing, sweeping the floor, taking care of our messes, tidying up the house, creating things, being creative, creating art and singing and dancing, and all those things are all also that beautiful mother archetype that is the divine feminine, nurturing, loving mother who, yes, she's has a role and she has a duty and an obligation, and but the obligation, duty, and role is joyful for her in so many ways.
Hmm. And
And so
I
I was
think,
just thinking about my children when they were in the Waldorf training in Waldorf school, and in
mhm,
kindergarten, they both were able to have that indoor outdoor play, but the indoor was very much my son and my daughter living that divine feminine nurturing mother archetype and becoming that, and role playing, just natural role playing, not forced,
mhm,
creating like a home in their kindergarten class, having all the things accessible to recreate home in their kindergarten class, so
yeah,
to speak. So she is very powerful, and she is one of the main accessible archetypes, that nurturing mother archetype, that sweet and caring, loving mother archetypes. And for some people it's really hard to reach her, but for most people it's easy to access, especially if you are a mother, or you are a mother to even a fur child. It doesn't matter if it's a
I
actual
think
physical fur child.
I think the archetype of the nurturing mother is easy to access because that's what we see on TV and media played out as
Yeah.
the way the mother is supposed to be. But I think in my own experience, the nurturing mother felt very hard. It felt hard to be expected to have that kind of compassion for something when I didn't necessarily have that kind of compassion for myself yet. And so I think that
Mhm.
that archetype of nurturing also can come into that aspect of like what we all expect the mother to look like. We want her to
Mhm.
be nurturing and kind and loving and self-compassionate and singing beautiful songs and making her home feel peaceful and calm and teaching her children how to share and loving their, um, you know, doing their hair and bathing them and this very like romanticized archetypal way of how we're supposed to approach motherhood.
So, let me ask you a question related to that. I do believe that there are a lot of women who have a very challenging time accessing that type of mother energy, especially if they dealt with trauma in their childhood, or trauma during their teens, or even trauma during their early years, 20s, even.
Mhm.
And so,
I think it also
um,
comes with like whether there was a lot of intimate cuddling in the house or
yeah.
not, or
Hmm.
whether there was a lot of reflective, divine peace, quiet, not a lot of chaos. Like I think that we have a very romanticized view of the way the mother should be if
Yeah.
you didn't have that kind of mother. Now, I had an amazing mother archetype, but my mother archetype was much more I am woman, hear me roar, and
Hmm.
much less nurturing per se,
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
way that I think we imagine nurturing for the divine feminine
Hmm.
in
And
the archetype.
so let me explain mine too, because I think it all begins with our story, right? I
Hmm.
think our mother begins with our story of how we were mothered. And you're right. That's really the root of it. Especially if you are if you're on the path of discovering or accessing your divine feminine and you haven't become a mother yet. Um, this is something to look at, because, or if you choose to be a mother someday, this is something to look at, because when I was younger, my mother had trauma as a child. So she did not hug me, and I was not nurtured in a very physical way by my mother. Her love
Hmm.
language, because she couldn't access her love and show me her love in a very physical way, was to buy me things. So she liked to give gifts. And so then I learned that that was a way to that showed that someone loved me. That's how my mother loved me. So that's how you show me you love me. And if you don't touch me, that's okay, because I never was touched as a child. Like I was never hugged or I was never kissed. There just
Hmm.
wasn't that cuddle time with my mom.
Affection.
Yeah. So I had to really look at that before I had kids, because my relationship with my husband, he was very much snuggled as a child. So I was more like, why are you touching me? And he was more like, why are you not letting me touch you? And so we
Hmm.
had to redevelop. I had to redevelop my concept of what the divine feminine mother looked like inside of me
I had
without
to
really
re-nurture
knowing.
myself. I had to
Yes.
re-nurture myself through
Uh-huh.
my husband and through
Right.
through the divine masculine.
Uh-huh.
My divine feminine was able to heal the nurturing part of my mother
Yeah.
in myself.
Hmm.
But I did find it hard. I found nursing really hard because you had to nurture a baby at your breast and hold them, and there was all these weird things, and there was all these weird feelings and all these weird hormones. And I found it very uncomfortable and very weird. I did it for quite a long time and it was okay and it became something very beautiful. But I remember at first being very like uncomfortable to that. I also was in a very different place, I think, when I first came into motherhood versus later on in motherhood.
True.
Um,
Mhm.
but in the archetypal of mother, I think that there's a lot of pieces where we expect her to be this like, you know, Susie, Jamie,
I
come
knew
to
it
the
was coming.
car now from the park, And I feel like there's that whole other shadow part of the mother that we don't talk about enough, which looks more like, get the fuck in the car, Like there's just
Yeah.
this like anger and this rage and this like sacred rage that the mother has because
Mhm.
she has something to protect.
Mhm.
And if as a maiden she wasn't protected, that sacred rage in motherhood can come out like rage in the home or like rage about the house not being clean or like rage about stupid little things and you could be throwing a lot of little fits and things like that. And I think that that shadow piece of the mother that we don't talk about a lot comes from the other side of the light, like nurture, or what's the opposite of nurture? Destroy,
Yeah.
right? I guess like destroy.
Mhm.
So like most people I think in my generation who grew up in like the 80s, we had this like aspect of nurturing that was very much like, okay, you're alive. I gave you food, you've got what you need,
Mhm.
you're kind of in your own space, you're good, I'm good, we're good? Did you do
That
your
was so my mother.
homework?
So my mom. Okay, you're alive. You're good. Great. Now I can go
Yeah.
take a nap.
But the archetype of the mother became this like overbearing, like you're supposed to helicopter mom around all your kids and like I
Mhm.
think that part of the beauty of the mother is that she's able to look at the archetype of her own shadow and see
Mhm.
maybe where she's being too overbearing or where she's being not nurturing enough or where she's experiencing too much rage or anger and she's able to then begin to process those things and bring them back to like a better balance. Um, but I think a lot of times we talk about the archetypes of the divine feminine in this like really beautiful even sexy way, but we don't necessarily talk about like that deep shadowy part of the mother who is the martyr mother who feels like she can't relax, who feels like she can't go out in her backyard and scream if she needs to scream because everyone might think she's crazy. She feels like she has to hold it all together. If she drops one thing, everything's gonna fall. Um, she is maybe even like with a newborn baby and exhausted, hasn't
Oh
slept
yeah.
in months, in the middle of the night with a screamer,
Yes.
And like I remember feeling so much effing rage. Like
Mhm.
nobody told me it was okay to feel like I wanted to throw my baby through the window. How
Mhm.
dare you say something like that? How dare you feel that way? But like
Mhm.
that's how I felt because
It's overwhelming.
it's overwhelming, and no one made the anger and rage safe. And though I didn't throw my baby out the window, though
Of
that
course.
as an ADHD person, I'm allowed to have thoughts that come across that might feel negative or
Yeah.
destructive, and I
Well,
don't need
that's
to act upon them.
no.
But no one in my mothering circles was making mothering of the shadow okay. We're like talking about it.
Yeah.
You don't go to your mom and be like, hey, best friend, did you rage yesterday on your kid?
Mm.
No? Oh, okay, because I did. Can we talk about it?
Mhm.
Like, I feel like we need more of that.
I think
Um,
so. I think there's more. I think it was a hidden, we hid those parts because
mhm,
it's not acceptable. You're a female, so don't ever be angry. Don't talk back. I mean, there's still that sense of like, um, we can't have full expression of emotions because
mhm,
that makes us weak. And
mhm,
that just needs to stop. That whole concept. I think all of us should have healthy expression of our emotions. And when you have a baby, your hormones are crazy. And if you suffer from ADHD or any type of mental illness, anxiety, I suffer from anxiety. The intrusive thoughts are going to be there. They're going to be there when you have a baby or when you're not going to have a
mhm.
baby. And just because they're there when you have a baby and they're maybe directed at your child, the thoughts, they're just thoughts. And most of the thoughts we have, remember, are not even ours. They're not even ours. We can have a whole podcast about that. But
Yeah. Well,
um
and I mean, I think that there is an aspect of understanding that there can be postpartum depression, and that,
yeah,
as a medical standpoint, obviously we're a podcast, we're not giving medical advice,
no,
but, no one had told me that rage was a part of postpartum depression, and it actually is. So I would say, though, if you're having a lot of those thoughts, definitely tell somebody, ask for help, get support.
100%.
But I think that it's also important. It's okay to call a friend and tell a
Mhm.
friend, I wanted to throw my baby through the window last night. Like, especially a friend who's a mom, because
Mhm.
they are going to be like, can I come over and do your dishes?
Yes,
Can I
yes.
come over and take the baby for, an
Mhm.
hour and let you sleep? But the archetype of the mother feels like she has to take it all on, feels like she has to like be the martyr, she has to have the perfect meal, the perfect house, the perfect car. She has to have, I remember with my first kid, I felt like they had to look perfect, perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect, everybody was going to be judging me based on the way I mothered. And that archetype of the mother,
Because they do.
I want to be a better mother than my mother,
Uh,
or, and especially in our culture with this whole like peaceful parenting, Waldorf parenting,
and that all came
homeschool
in
parenting.
hardcore when we became parents. Like that was, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad for that wave of that trend because it gave us an opportunity to see the light mother archetype and the dark one and actually have a name for it. And then also it
Totally.
gave us tools to access the dark so we can integrate it instead of come from it and react through it and become that all the
Well, and
time.
I think that so much of the archetype of the mother comes from this aspect of the stories we believe around the way a mother should show up. And I like that's kind of why I like to use fairy tales as an example, because the shadow mother would be very much like the stepmother, right? The one who wants to stay beautiful and young. She doesn't necessarily accept the children, she doesn't necessarily want to be a mother. Um, these are all normal feelings in the archetype of the shadow mother. I think that there's also these pieces too that we don't always talk about the fact that like the shadow mother realizes that motherhood's hard, but then can like give herself self-compassion and love through it.
Mhm.
Um,
That is what she should do.
mhm,
Turn to more grace for herself,
yeah,
that you don't have to always do it all and you don't have to be perfect. And who cares if other people judge you during parenthood? This is your journey. And you never know who you are as a human until you literally have to be a mother. I mean, it's the truth. Like being a
mhm,
parent, I'm father and mother, is I think a very huge spiritual step in our journey. It's a
mhm.
challenge. it's a growth opportunity. And you do dive deep into those archetypes and the shadowy pieces and the light pieces too, which is so rewarding because you get to experience both. If you're aware and want to learn and integrate. There are people who go into it without that kind of understanding of how life is, and that's okay too. That's fine for them.
Well, and when we're talking about the archetype of the Macon Mother Crone and the Wild Woman, we're talking about archetypes that have played themselves out not only in our lives, things that we've seen, part of our stories, but they're playing themselves out, in our present. And so, one of the things that we do in our Paths of Priestess program is we spend 3 months digging deep into the maiden. We spend 3 months digging deep into the mother, 3 months digging deep into the wild woman, and 3 months digging deep into the crone. And the reason that we do that is because the mother, maiden, wild woman, and crone archetypes, the small facets of each of those archetypes are so big. When you're looking at the martyr mother, she really has so many things that come along with her. The martyr mother has this whole light piece of like wanting to go and die for her children. She's willing to do anything to keep the peace. She's willing to do anything to protect and keep a safe and trusted space for her children. And yet there's this other piece that she's also willing to give until she's done, until she has nothing left. That
That's true.
she allows her children to become 100% of what completes her, and then she no longer has something of herself. She begins to make her children her joy, and then when they go and they find their own lives, she doesn't have anything to create her own joy.
Mm-hmm.
These pieces of the mother, the nurturing mother who is going to always have a warm meal on the table, and she's going to cuddle you and kiss your boo boo, and she's going to sing you back to the car when you need to come home, versus the mother who maybe even in that shadowy piece is more like, get in the car, like, I'm done, I've had enough. She's more triggered, she's coming
She's
from her
just
triggery
triggered and
spaces,
tired, tapped
but
out.
she's tired, she's tapped out, she's in
Mhm.
survival. She's coming from that space of, I'm not nurtured.
Mhm.
And so when we're able to, with an above space, right, go above and observe the situation, then we can begin to look and say, not only was this the way that my mother mothered me, not only is this the way that I'm mothering my children that I like or don't like, but this is the way that I need to go and mother myself.
Mhm.
This is where I need to go and mother my maiden. My maiden needs to
Mhm.
be told that she's okay, that was a great idea and I want that idea too, instead of being scared by the idea or, triggered by the idea. Like there's these pieces of the mother that is able to access the most deepest energy possible because she oftentimes has nothing left and still has to pull through something. But she also has this innate ability to be able to take those light pieces of herself and like nurture herself back
Yes.
to the beauty, to the light,
That's
to the,
so
not stressed out mama.
that's right. And she has a deep well of energy and flow for her children because she's keeping them safe and she's making sure that their needs are met and she's caretaking. So if you are wanting to do any deep maiden mother work for yourself, then you would take that, access that deep well of energy, which kind of feels like this almost like a like a passionate, like I will do anything for my kids kind of feeling, or I will do anything for my fur baby or whatever it is, whoever you're caretaking, right? It's like this,
Hmm.
it's guttural and it's primal. And you can take that to your inner maiden and you can bring that to her, if especially if she wasn't mothered um in a way that maybe you would have liked her to be. And then you can give that to her. And when you do that in meditation you could do it in poetry, art, any way you choose, journaling, you will then access your maiden and bring her up. You will lift her up. You will have her wounded sides more integrated into the wholeness of her sweet, innocent side so that you can be full too. And you will stop having those reactions. You will stop channeling that instinct that you're feeling while you're in motherhood or while you're accessing that mother and taking it to the dark side. You will start taking it to the light side more and more because it's that inner child inside of you who was hurt, who is screaming out for all that loving and nurturing that you're doing. So you have to turn it inward and take the time to do that. And we have many ways to do that at Path to Priestess or Peace at Perfection and in the Path to Priestess. But I think we're going to leave you with one today. So we're not there yet, but we will take you down a little practice that you can do to help, nurture that maiden, give her the love that maybe she needed and some support. Support.
And what are the best ways to nurture the mother when we feel like maybe more of that shadow mother is becoming a part of our daily basis and maybe we're needing to call in more of that light mother? What are some things that we can do?
I would definitely say look at your life and where you need to set up boundaries. So if you are, yeah, this is what we talk about all day long, every dang day. I don't think we're ever going to stop having this conversation until our kids are grown. I mean, this is it. This is it. This is the
But in
conversation.
all areas, and
Yes.
not in giving yourself the permission to not have to be all for everybody, all everything, all do, all be, all do. Like, no, you can't. You can't be all do all.
Boundaries.
You have to have boundaries for
And have a
nurturing
vision for
yourself.
your day. So as a mom, when I
I
was in the
love
thick of
that.
being a mom, I did not have a vision for my day because I was just barely getting enough sleep and I was waking up and it was bottles and feeding and this and that and to and fro and all the things. Now they're older, so it's a little easier. But I did on the days that I was lucid enough to, I had a vision for my day. And that vision looked like wake up and before I always say this and I'm always going to say it. Think of 5 things you're grateful for before you hit the floor. Like before your feet hit the floor in the morning, start with gratitude. Because your day is going to get wild if you're an active mom of young kids. It's just going to get wild.
Hmm.
And if you are not even a mother, but you're definitely living in that dark mother syndrome or that dark mother archetype, and you want to balance
Hmm.
that out as well, and you have no children, then triggers, like Stacy said, kind of when you're triggered, anytime you're triggered, go, whoa, I'm being triggered. Okay. Observe. What am I doing? How did I react? Why did I do that? Um, the more that you can see yourself as a third person, like above the situation, and look down and kind of go, wow, look at me. I'm all triggered. And you will be able to integrate that part of you. You don't even need to know why. Most of the time that we're triggered is because of things that we heard subconsciously from 0 to 7. And it could have been something our parents heard on the radio. This got in there somewhere. And then later in life, it enacted itself as a trigger. So you don't always have to know what you're being triggered by or why, but it's good to recognize it. And when you can recognize that part of you, that angry mother, that rageful mother, that um shadow mother, then the more she's felt seen and heard, the more she's going to soften and just become softer and not be so ignited by other things. And you'll have more control.
One
But
of
that's what I would
my
say.
one of my favorite ways to, I think, bring back the light mother when the shadow mother is showing up in my own personal life is just a touch point. And for me, it really is just a bath. And sometimes that means a shower or a bath.
Mhm.
But for my husband and I, we just know, like, if I come to him and I'm like, I need a bath, I need a shower, like, I have to have that time. I lock the door, the kids aren't allowed in. There is time for me to be able to be present. And everybody in the household has to be on board for that. Everybody in the household has to understand that that 1 hour that I get to myself when I'm a nursing mom, especially, might be the only hour of sanity I'm going to have all day.
Yep.
So, that aspect of just being able to breathe for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour. I had 4 kids under 6 years old, so there was a point when, maybe 30 minutes was even hard. But I have been very blessed with a husband who um, doesn't necessarily do things like video games or golfing or even sports. So I'm not having to contend with that. If I was contending with that, if you're golfing Saturday, I'm taking Sunday. Peace
Mhm.
out. You want to watch sports all day Sunday? No problem. I'm taking Saturday. Peace out.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't have to contend with that in my marriage and my relationship. But if I did, I feel like the only way I would be able to contend with that would be something like that because I'm a working mom, you're a working dad. We both are part of this family. We're both a partnership here. And if you have the beauty to be able to take 6 hours to go golf, then I have the beauty to take an hour every day to take a nice hot shower by myself with a kid on, not on my boob.
100%.
Um, And that goes with a lot of different things. I mean, if you are a mother who's constantly in your shadowy self because the archetype of the mother is showing up for you in a triggered way, and you're setting boundaries and they're not being met, and you're feeling like you can't rest, and you're feeling like it's all on you, and you're feeling like you don't have support, then it's important to be communicating with people who can support you, whether that be a best friend or, a sister. And then really working within your relationship if you have that opportunity, if you're blessed with that relationship, to figure out ways and things that they can take off your plate. Because as the mother, our mental load gets so overloaded and we take everything on. The martyr mother takes everything on. She takes on all of the mental load, but partly also because the masculine doesn't totally understand the mental load because they're not meant to like be the managers. The mother's meant to be the manager. She's meant to like know all the things that are going on in her home at all times. And so finding things within your day that you no longer need to be wor- worried about,
Micromanaging
required to do,
is what
care
we're,
about.
yeah.
In the beginning, it might be something as simple as laundry
I was just gonna say that. That's what I did.
or something as
Mhm.
simple as I don't wash the baby bottles. He washes the baby bottles
That's right.
because I nurse in them and I do all the work of pumping in them and I'm literally attached to a pump 8 hours a day. As a mother, I'm a milky
Yeah.
yolker.
Yes.
So you can like wash, I mean, find something because I hear women all the time say, he would never. You know what? Then let him rise to the occasion. And ask for something small like cleaning
Yeah.
cleaning bottles, and come to it in a way of like, look, I need your help, I need your support, this is something small you can do for me that would help. I know like my husband did really physically have a hard time changing diapers. He would like often puke. Oh well, you're gonna puke then, get over it. Right.
Yeah.
And eventually he got over it. We have 4 kids, so I mean it took a while, but there was still times when even I felt like that. But
Mhm.
I think sometimes the martyr mother gives the man a free pass to not show up in the way she needs him to show up.
Right.
And then she gets upset and mad that he's not showing up in the way that
Right.
she needs him to show up because she's not actually communicating the way she needs him to show up. And so by
Set
finding
boundaries.
small things that you know that he can do and that you guys can work together to manage the home together, you can begin to release some of your mental load, release some of that shadowy mother that feels like she has to take it all on, release some of that shadowy mother that feels like she can't relax or that she can't ever have time for herself or, that she's just supposed to go, 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 do, do, do all the time, which is that survival piece, and put her back in thrival.
Hmm.
Maybe for you, that's a weekend away once a month. Maybe you
Hmm.
can't do that because you got a pumping baby. Fine, then take the baby for the weekend and maybe you don't take the toddlers, you
Hmm.
know? Maybe it's one weekend every 6 months. Maybe you can't do a weekend. Maybe you're just doing a date night. Maybe the date night's by yourself. Maybe it ain't even with your man, okay? Maybe it's just by yourself. You're taking yourself on a date night once a week.
I
But
would just even say it could be as simple as breathing taking 10 minutes in quiet, put headphones on and just like put your hands on your heart and like breathe, because we're in fight or flight, we're in
Mhm.
survival mode, and we are activating all the cortisol and all the stress hormones, and we're feeding that to our babies. Number one, I learned that and I was just sad about that, but I did finally realize I was doing that. But then secondly, we're never going to have a come down. It's going to be a crash. And that
Mhm.
crash takes away from everybody and you. You're not, it's harder to rebuild from a crash. So just, if you can't get away, if you can't even, if you, it's just you, if you're the only person there, if in you and your children, hand on your heart and breathe into your heart space and like
Mhm.
be intentional with it.
Take a bath.
We
Get the
use
baby in the bath
we
with
use
you.
somatic breath work in our practices because everybody can do these. Everybody can access it, and it really does work. Somatic breath really works. What it does is it engages your mind to focus on your breathing. So you're slowing down your mind immediately, stopping the rat race in your mind. Then you're breathing. You're oxygenating your body. You're breathing into your chakra. You're breathing into the tissue of your body where maybe you feel stuck. Maybe your heart is kind of stuck because you're in survival. So you're kind of hunched and you're constantly like breastfeeding and doing things, and you just haven't had like, an open breath. Maybe this isn't you at all. Maybe you're doing yoga and all the things and doing all the mom things, but still feeling stressed. And if that's the case, then proper boundaries and having
Mhm.
people help you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's the martyr, the dark shadow mother is that
Yeah,
martyr,
she doesn't want to
not
ask for
asking
help.
for help. We don't always
Mhm.
have another partner or another person to ask for help, but we have friends, we have community. We can even just ask for help by praying and listening to a podcast or taking a self-help class or, learning how to do somatic breath work and using it on ourselves. All these things are ways to come out of that dark, shadowy mother and come into a more nurturing, loving person. And letting go of any shame or guilt. Don't accumulate the shame or guilt. That is so easy to do during motherhood.
Mhm.
And we are going to make mistakes, and we are going to have those moments, and we are going to rage, and we're going to do all the things, and we're going to scream and yell, and maybe we're going to throw things, but maybe make a pact with yourself that you only allow yourself to feel the shame or guilt for a split second. Forgive yourself, forgive them, and roll on. Like
Mhm.
something that okay, it's because of that I'm exhausted and I haven't
Well,
had any
it's
sleep for weeks,
disconnection. I mean,
and I
at the end of
and go ahead.
at the end of the day, when you're fighting with someone, all you want is to be connected with that person.
Hmm.
When when the mother is exhausted and tired because she didn't set good boundaries or because she doesn't have support, she needs connection.
Yeah, she
She needs
does.
to be held. She needs to be loved. She needs to be, have a cup of tea and sit outside and watch the sunset. I'm not
Hmm.
saying watch the sunrise because I'm not an early riser. And I hated when people would tell me, wake up before your babies to be a better mother. And I'd be like, I'm over here from 4 a.m. nursing till 5:30 a.m. At 5:30 a.m., I'm going back to sleep until 9 a.m. I am not waking up before my babies wake up. Don't
Hmm.
tell me to do it.
Mine were up all night.
And
And
don't tell me that's the only way I'm going to be able to get back to my maidenhood.
hmm.
But I think that we make Martyr Mother the hero. We make the archetype of the modern mother who thinks that she can do everything and she can manage everything and she can carry all the mental load. She's the hero. And the reality is that she's not the hero and she needs to ask for support. If she can't get support from the person who's in her home supporting her, her a partner, her lover, then she needs to get support from, friends and from the village and from the sisterhood, because that support is what makes the difference between um the rage and anger taking over and the love and nurturing being able to take over.
And if you've listened in to this part of this podcast and you're on YouTube, I really want to hear from you. Drop below a comment below how you dealt with these darker mothering archetypical moments during your time as a mom? What did you
What
do to
was
come out? How did you integrate your light mother? What did you do to set boundaries? I think that as a village of moms, we're here to offer advice, you and I, Stacy, but I know that we have a village of women who have great advice for this. And I think it would be helpful if we could comment and just share with everybody.
Mhm. And I think it's just so important to understand that, we are women first. The archetype of the mother is part of the maiden. The mother calls on the maiden calls on the mother. She is part of us, and it is part of our normal cycle to have that, nurturing person show up into our life. And so, giving ourselves a lot of self compassion and grace and support, asking for help. All of those things can really help us integrate the shadow into the light. If you want to learn more about the archetypes of the mother or go deep dive for 3 months on the mother, check out our class on the mother or our class of priestess. So thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you.
Join us next week and we will talk all about the archetype of the crone.
Yeah, sounds great. Can't wait to
Peace
talk about
out,
it.
witches.
Peace out.